Hi guys, come over here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to episode 2 of my book review series, and these are all just random books that I'm gonna be reading on my own, and then I'm gonna be reviewing them out with you to see if you like the books or not, or if you guys have any books that you could suggest below in the comment section. You can also comment them too if you like. Alright, so welcome to Snow and Poison by Melissa De La Cruz. Okay, so this book is a retelling of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So of course, so you guys know what the original one was about, right? So Snow White was just living her alone in her Germany castle, right? And then she meets up with a prince and falls in love with him, but as soon as the stepmother sees it, she sends Prince Florian off, that's his real name, and then Snow White goes to look for the prince, and then runs off, accidentally bumps into a cottage where she met the seven dwarfs who she took care of, like in this retelling she did. Okay, but I'll tell you more later about this. And then she meets up with the witch, which is also her stepmother, which is not the case in here either. And then forces Snow White to eat the apple, so the evil queen gets to have the prince, not Snow White. And Snow White was in her class coffin. Then the prince goes and kisses her, saves her life, and they lived happily ever after. Okay. Wow. It's similar, but not similar at the same time in this retelling. So it starts out, okay, so her name is Sophie Lean, okay. Snow White was retold as her nickname. And so since the original Snow White prince his name is Florian, aka Ferdinand, while he was retold as the young prince's dad. Okay, so the young prince's name is actually Philip this time in this retelling here. Okay, as Snow White goes by a real name of Sophie Lean. Okay, as Sophie Lean excuse me, hears about her father going to marry a new woman, and she's overjoyed. Okay, she's happy that her father found love. Okay, because ever since she was a kid, ever since her mother died, Duchess Maria, her father was always alone, and Sophie had to be left alone whenever her father was doing stuff on his own. Okay. So Sophie's dad's name is Duchess Maximilian, and then they all live in Bavaria, which is like southeast of Germany. And during that time, it was like 1621. And yes, the original Snow White, it says here, takes place in Germany, but early 1500s. So Sophie's debut, okay, as a judge actually takes place the same night that her father marries Lady Claudia, which kind of is a little rushed and a little claustrophobic. So she sees So she was like out of sight, but she's seeing them at the same time. But Sophie saw the wedding. She was so happy. She's happy, and then as soon as Sophie goes through her own debut ceremony, as soon as she meets up with Claudia and Maximilian, Claudia ends up fainting for some reason. Okay, but the debut was a success after all. Okay, so during the celebration, while Sophie was eating with her dad, she catches sight of Prince Philip for the first time. Okay, and then as soon as she goes and hits the dance floor, she bumps into him, and they walk up dancing together, which causes Snow White to fall in love with him the first time, since he has butterflies around him. Okay. After they felt like tiring themselves, they go out to the garden, to talk with each other for a while. Of course, Prince Philip said that he plans to go to England. Not to mention he has an arranged marriage with Elizabeth, but he also falls in love with Snow White, so he winds up going there, spoiler alert. So the next, but as Prince Philip and Sophie was hanging out in the garden, Philip's tutor interrupts him and forces them to leave while giving Snow White a terrified look, like, if you are going to be with Prince Philip, okay, you will die. Okay, that's basically what Sir Rodrigo, Prince Philip's tutor, was kind of saying was his face. Next morning, Sophie was wondering about Sophie, so she looks for her in her garden, and then she scares Sophie because she silently moves, and so they hung out for a while, and then there's one thing that Sophie's stepmother can't stand, which is seafood, and it makes Sophie's stepmother, Duchess Claudia, sick. Okay. But as Sophie continued spending time with her stepmom and her lessons, she heard rumors about her stepmother performing witchcraft in the woods, and she's been acting strange lately, and they're rumoring that Sophie's stepmom is going to have a boy. Okay. Which she talks with Audie about, and Audie explained everything to her. So Sophie goes to the library to do some research, and saw Claudia accidentally causing two maids to knock down and break her biological mother's face, which upsets her. And then she forces them to fix it, which is standing in her room right now. And then later that night, Sophie's father calls for Sophie in his study and tells her that there's going to be an event tonight near the castle, so she doesn't have to go to Italy or Spain, and he tells Sophie that Claudia is going to be her chaperone. And then her mother wore green while Sophie wore a blue gown with bell sleeves, okay, which I think it was this one that she was talking about. As they attend the event, Sophie couldn't find Prince Philip at first because nowadays she was looking forward to him, and so she ends up dancing with Mansfield from England and Dietrich from, it was somewhere else. But so she chooses to dance with Manfred until she was able to catch up with Prince Philip after catching him a few times with another girl dancing with each other. And as soon as Prince Philip and Sophie caught up with each other, okay, they took a glass of wine and they trot off to the library together with each other. This is when Philip admits to Sophie that he did not go to England. Okay, besides, just in case you guys want to complain about Prince Philip not going to England to marry Elizabeth's heart is somewhere else, not Prince Philip's. Okay, so Philip, disobeys his dad by not going to England. He says that his dad has a bad reputation. There's war going on during that time, Spain versus Milan and Italy. And he said that there was gossip about his father's practices being controversial, and as they grew more comfortable together, they decided to attempt their first kiss. Unfortunately, it was interrupted by Claudia bursting into the library that they were in, apparently sick because she can't eat seafood. Okay, apparently she ate clavin and she thought it was rabbit. Because of all the noise in the ballroom, she couldn't hear it. And so Sophie, Philip helped her go home with Sophie, of course. And then next morning, to check on Sophie, he goes to the castle. And then Sophie invites him to dinner, which he reluctantly agrees. As Sophie's dad looks at the relationship, he's like, maybe not. So, forcing Philip away from him, okay, her father decides to force Sophie to choose a suitor because marrying Prince Philip of Spain will ruin Sophie's reputation. Okay, and she was almost engaged to Manfred. That's the guy who she ends up choosing, right? And people were all excited, stuff like that. Wow. That same night, Sophie decides to run away. So she tries to go up the mountainside and then gets scared. And Prince Philip goes to her. It's like, hey, let's go back to the castle and, get engaged ourselves. Well, he didn't tell her that yet, but it's because they went to the gardens first to talk. And that's when Prince Philip proposes to Snow White for the first time. I was freaking happy. I was excited because I wanted Prince Philip to be with Sophie. Wow. Sophie's dad may be a little intimidated by it, but he was happy overall for Sophie and Philip. And then so as they set up the banquet. Oh no, they went to dinner. And then that's when Sophie's dad was like Sophie's dad had to be interrupted by a guard of his saying that there was security in kitchen, and he's like, what does this describe? And he described this paint colors, which is orange, reddish orange and gold. And he thought it was Prince Philip, but it was someone else entirely, by the way. And and I think that was during the time that, no, I think Prince Philip's days at that time. And then they set up for the engagement banquet. That's when it happened. Well, so as all of them were sitting at the table, Claudia insisted that Sophie switch places with her father so she could sit next to Philip. And even despite his father, Sophie's dad, having a bad habit of reaching for his old goblet in Sophie's spot, even though Sophie was sitting there, good thing he did. I'm gonna explain why. There's a good reason he did. There's a good thing he did reach for her, because there was poison around the rim of the goblet, and what happens next was her father falls asleep. That's what happened. And by the way, Claudia is actually pregnant with Duke Maximilian's baby boy. Okay. Well, during the dinner time, her father falls asleep. So, all of them went to the infirmary, and Claudia tries to help her dad wake up and heal by putting potion on him that the witch in the woods gave her, and Prince Philip and Sophie were spending time with each other, making sure that everything was going okay. And so during this time that Sophie was debuted, she goes up to the village secretively for the first time and realizes that children were forced into labor, and they weren't fed well, and everyone wasn't getting fed well. And she discussed it with her father. He promised her that he will help her. So as Philip and Sophie were taking over, since the father wasn't feeling well at first, okay, Philip gets a letter saying that Spain is at war with England, of course, because they always had a rivalry with each other. So Phil's like, okay, Sophie, I'll have to leave. And then, so he left. Sophie was upset. And then, Claudia tells Sophie that she's not safe in the castle anymore because King Ferdinand is actually the villain of this retelling of Snow White, because he does not want Prince Philip to marry Sophie Lee. Okay? And so, the reason that the castle was not safe anymore is because Sophie Lee was going to get assassinated by King Ferdinand through his platoon. So, Claudia takes Sophie Lee with their traveling clothes on out into the woods alongside the water. They had to survive on berries and mushrooms, and then that's when Sir Rodrigo caught up to them. Okay, he tried to get Sophie, but Sophie Lee uses her mother's dagger that was gifted to her to murder Sir Rodrigo. So it was a struggle, but Sophie successfully fought off Sir Rodrigo and killed him. And then more arrows were shot at them, and they both. And Sophie Lee had to run away, while Claudia stayed there, basically. And then on her way, she had to survive on mushrooms and berries and apples too. Okay, until she reaches a dark pathway. Okay, that she hoped will throw off Key Ferdinand's assassins. Okay, so she quickly goes in there, and wow, she ends up at a cottage. Okay, and so she like looks around. You know, hopefully it's empty, right? Well, as soon as she gets in there, she ends up meeting with 7 orphan boys. That's what the 7 dwarfs were told as. 7 orphan boys. But to point out to you, they don't have the names that the original 7 dwarfs have. Okay, I'm gonna tell you their names right here, okay? So they're all orphaned and they work at the copper mines like the 7 dwarfs did. Okay? So there's 7 boys. The first boy was the oldest. His name is Anselm. He's 12 years old. He's the oldest of all of them. Then there's Claus and Willem, who are brothers at birth. So that's 3. Bren, Marcus, Joanne, and Thomas, who's the youngest of all of them. And so, yes, Anselm introduced his brothers to Sophie, and then they make a deal with each other that Sophie's got to take care of the house while they work in the mines. Well, then she goes to town for the first time, which is a big mistake, but she had to get salt and she had to get bread for the 7 boys, and she does hunt a deer later on and stuff like that. And then, but while she was in town, she goes and gets 5 pounds of salt while forcing him to, and she trades her mother's necklace for the salt. Okay, and at one point she sees Lottie going in the store and didn't want to see her, so she covers herself. Alright, and then as soon as she got the salt, she and the boys run up to the cottage, and then we're feasting on the deer. And then Sylvie's like, hey, as you guys go out there, I'm gonna try to prepare for the winter by bringing us food and making sure that cottage is cleaned up and stuff like that and secured. Well, she did that, and well, guess what? Duchess Claudia frees the children from having to work in the mines anymore for the winter. So, like, no, not just for the winter, but permanently. And then winter hit, and then Snow White, stays and then eats with them and then tells stories, and then she spends so much time with the boys, she bonded with them as family, And guess what happens next? Spring comes, and as they were gone, that's when Snow White met the witch. And then she's like, Snow White, Sophie Lee, I know that's you. Um, you know, you can't let King Ferdinand kill you. Okay, that's why I'm gonna knock you out with a poison apple and make you sleep. She's like, okay, okay. But before you do that, I'm gonna write them a note real quick. So she does that. And then, as Snow White bite the apple. Okay, so I know witchcraft's not a good thing in real life, but in this one, it was only to put Sophie to sleep and to make her appear dead. To let you guys know. And, so as she was falling asleep, she's like, do you know my mother? The witch said yes. Because she was playing the backstory. Duchess Maria was there at the time the war against witches was happening, and Duchess Maria saved the witch from dying, so she could protect Sophie in the future. Okay. And then as Sophie was sleeping while Prince Philip was at the battlegrounds, and he decides to go and confront his dad about attempting to kill Sophie, and that's when his father admits it. And Phil's like, okay, Dad, you suck. I'm gonna go and find Sophie. Okay? And Prince Philip rides his horse to Bavaria. Okay, Bavaria, yep, sorry. And then he meets up with Princess Claudia. Okay. And as he goes outside to the garden, one of the Bavaria guards goes to him and said, hey, sorry to say this, but Sophie's dead, which she's not really. Okay? But it causes Prince Philip to get paranoid, so he goes in the castle hallways, it goes against a wall, and he warns her a little bit. That's when he meets the witch, of course, who tells him that Sophie's not dead, but she's in a deep sleep. Okay. During this time, this is when Duke Maximilian actually died. Yes. Duke Maximilian actually died in his sleep. Which sucks. You know, right? And then the witch gives Prince Philip the golden potion, that golden concoction which would help Sophie wake up. And he's trying to figure out how to use it. She's like, you'll figure it out. And then she said, but you have to go now. And so Prince Philip hurries to find Snow White, and as soon as he gets there, the youngest boy, Thomas, goes and meets him, and as soon as Prince Philip introduces himself, Thomas was like, are you sure you're Prince Philip? He's like, yes. And then the other boys came around and they had their mining weapons and they're like, back off to Snow White. He's like, but I'm Prince Philip. Okay, so they're like making shit, and then they led him to Snow White. And then as soon as Prince Philip touches the glass coffin, it dissipates. And that's when all of the young orphan boys were like, oh my god, you are Prince Philip. And then she tries to figure out how to wake up Snow White. Yes, this was a kiss, but he didn't know that at first. So he pours a drop on her lips first, and he waited a little bit, and then he's like, she's not waking up. Well, he ends up putting the concoction on his lips first, and then he goes and kisses her. And then that's when she woke up, and then they all celebrate, and then the boys were all celebrating as Snow White and Prince Philip were kissing each other. Okay, which is a really happy moment. And then, as they went back to the castle, okay, they all met up with Lottie, and as they were preparing the weddings, Claudia has her baby boy, and they named him Maximilian after Sophie's dad because he died, okay, and Snow White, no, hang on, that's not how the rest of the story went. So, they, were about to show new Maximilian, okay, as Snow White and Claudia were both wearing a dress. Well, spoiler alert, Claudia's dress was a gift from Spain during the time that Snow White was engaged to Philip, right? Well, the dress that Snow White was supposedly wore for her banquet, it had poison on the sides of the bodice, the corset part, okay? So, as you guys didn't know, the top part of the dress is actually the corset, or bodice, and then the skirt part is called, and then the skirt is, the gown goes down, okay? Well, there was poison inside the bodice, which is like kind of the waist part of the dress, and it causes Sophie's stepmother, Claudia, to bleed as she ends up dying. Okay, that's when Sophie's like, oh my god, someone get Philip, and yeah. And then she was in her mom's bedroom for a while after hanging up a small painting of Duchess Maximilian. In the dining table was a black veil over it, meaning he's dead. And then that's when the witch comes and meets with Sophie and explains that her name is Brunhild, and she tells Sophie that her mom saved her life. And then Sophie's like, hey, do you want to be the grandmother while me and Philip goes to Spain? And that's when the witch accepted it. Okay. And so Sophie and Philip builds a Duchess Claudia statue in her honor because her stepmother helped Sophie marry Prince Philip. If it wasn't for Claudia and Brunhild, okay, Sophie would not have ever have made it. Okay. And Prince Philip and Sophie are actually married at this point too. So that was like the ending of the story. Okay. But the lesson here is that love is stronger than poison. But here's how I feel the lesson. Okay, I said if necessary, especially when it comes to someone that you love, and even though they might be against your choice of love, okay, even though it might be wrong to do, it's actually okay. Like, the way you do this is wrong to do. If it's really, really, really necessary, it's okay to fake your death. Like Sophie here did. While eating a poison apple that knocked her out and made her appear dead. Because if your purpose is not over and you have to fake your death, yeah, I would rather fake my death if something were to happen to me than to actually get killed by someone that is not a good influence on my life. So, that is a lesson right here. Very good lesson. And, I just felt bad when Duke Maximilian and Lady Claudia died. And so what did Sophie and Philip do after they left? Well, they went to Spain, and then they went back to Bavaria to visit, to rule both places. While Claudia and, while the witch stood out there as the grandma of the house. Wow. That's it. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you like this. I hope that you guys read this retelling of Snow White by Melissa De La Cruz. Melissa De La Cruz, I thank you for writing this book. Even though Snow White may not be my favorite princess, this is a very good story that I read. One of the best Disney retellings that I've ever read. So, everyone else, let me know what other books that you want me to read and do a book review on, potentially. And remember, there's always a keep of hope despite the hurt caused by the kryptonite. I sincerely hope that every one of you guys have a good day. Bye.